Hello, everyone. Hope you enjoyed the panel discussions. Right now, up next, we have Arielle Wiltz, who will be doing a workshop on reimagining design thinking, and I'd love to welcome her onto the floor to join me here. Hi, Arielle.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thank you. Well, the floor is yours. I'll hand it over to you.
Okay, so hi everyone. Again, I'm Arielle Wiltz, and I'm so excited to talk to you about reimagining design thinking. We're going to be focusing on pay equity. So, I'll just like to say a little bit about myself. I am a senior product designer, and I work at Compass. I am very passionate about design. I love the intricacy of design. I love doing flows, rapid ideation, etc. But my real passion is social innovation. And what I am diving deep into right now is looking at design ethics and the impact of products within marginalized communities, especially Black and Brown communities. And it really started in 2018 when I was working at Frog Design. And while I was there, I created 2 programs to really start creating dialogue as well as creating pipelines for marginalized communities to get into the creative industries. So that's more so my passion of it. And we're going to go dive into deep into this here. And just skip a slide. Okay, before we start, I want to go into the inspiration of this conversation. So the inspiration is really what helped me create this workshop. So first, one person is Maggie Graham. She is a designer at Google, and she wrote this amazing article on design thinking, and I think everyone should check this out. Another designer is Teresa Moses, and she is a Black designer as well as social innovator, and she created a template that we are going to explore together. As well as Mio Saki, she's the chairperson at Design for Social Innovation at School of Visual Arts. It's in New York, and also she's my mentor, so she really inspired me with this workshop. And then lastly is the article that I wrote where I actually dive in deep, reimagining design thinking, and how the groundbreaking elections last year demonstrate inclusive process. So that's what we're going to get into. So give me a second to slide. Okay, so what is design thinking? It's a 5-step process. Typically designers, community organizers, creatives, people in the tech industry utilize this, and you empathize with the user. So it's like really doing a lot of user research. Then once you get that, you begin to analyze and define the problem or your findings. And then you usually pick one finding and you go into the ideation of different concepts like rapid concepting it. And then from one, you prototype that one, whether it's low fidelity, high fidelity, and then you test. Give me a second here. Okay, so that's more so, like I said, within Compass, we do that. Within any creative space, I have done this before. A lot of community organizers do that. But the question I really want to pose is, does this 5-step process really work when solving ambiguous issues, right? Like security is a big ambiguous one, healthcare, pay equity. Does design thinking really help solve these issues? And I'll argue, no, it doesn't really help, because these problems are more convoluted, it's more unpredictable, it's messy. There's a lot of complexity that comes with these issues, like historical, socio-economical context. It's a ton of different people that you are serving. So if we do that regular linear design thinking process, it will be more limiting and ineffective, right? So what I'm really calling for us to do is so as Maggie said, she said, design isn't magic. To address a wicked problem is to look for its roots. There's no hexagon map for getting there. So what I want us to do is really let's look and reimagine this, right? So next slide. It should be coming. The next slide. Yes. So next slide. So it's really more so of a circle. And remember, we're doing progress, not perfection, right? So it's really going about it in a way of, instead of really empathizing, we're going to sit there and listen, allow people to tell their stories, allow people to share their experiences. And from there, as you listen, you'll see more patterns. Understand the context as well as historical, socio-economical, but also understanding like your beliefs and how this may perpetuate some of this system issues. Mapping, really looking at the whole ecosystem, defining what problem we're going to look at. Again, rapid ideation, measuring, seeing the impact, seeing how it may cause harm, seeing the time and the effectiveness of it, and as well prototype and test. And like I said, it may be, I put in a circle, but it's really not linear at all as how you may approach this. So what we're going to focus on is two. We're going to focus on context and mapping. That's the two that we're going to focus on today. So as we're going about this, I just want you guys to know, feel free to comment in the comments, because this is going to really be thought-provoking. Have a piece of paper, write things down, like your thoughts as we go about this as well. So within context is usually looking at the social and the social economics of things, but in a historical perspective, but you're really diving in deep and looking at the systemic roots. And one thing that I have learned is when you start doing that, you really look at your beliefs first. Like, what are your beliefs and how your behaviors and everything perpetuates it. And who I want to really utilize for that is the template that I spoke of earlier by Teresa Moses. Like I said, really check her out. She did an amazing template based on the strong Black woman. And I think it will be very beneficial for us as we dive in deep looking at pay equity. Okay, so before we start, I do want to have a gentle note. Like, these conversations can sometimes be triggering because you're really looking at your personal experiences, and sometimes has not always been the best. So I just want to let everyone know, as we go through this process, really breathe through it, make sure you drink your water. I have tea, and just really breathe and work through this process. If you feel like this is a lot, it's okay to step away within this template. So the first one that I'm going to talk about is your personal beliefs. So I had 2 minutes, but I changed it to 30 seconds. We're going to do 30 seconds, but we're really going to just dive in deep and look at our personal beliefs. And what are our personal beliefs around money, around pay equity? So the question that I want you to explore is, what is my limiting personal beliefs, ideas, feelings that perpetuate lack around pay? And I'll give you my example. My example is, as a Black woman from the South, I acquired the belief to accept what is given to me and not ask for more. And usually when we acquire different beliefs, it's based off of like personal experiences, family experiences. And I'll give a really good story to demonstrate this. So my mother, she's brilliant. She is a mathematical whiz, and she worked at a bank for 5 years. And while she was at the bank, she managed a $4 billion portfolio, $4 billion. And within the 5 years, she only made $30,000, even though she continuously asked for a raise. She continuously tried to show, like, I deserve this. They wouldn't give it to her. So when she left, they had to hire 3+ people to do her job. So that's a story to just share and demonstrate, to show how, like, experience that you see of others, how it can really become a personal belief within yourself. So I'm going to start it off with 30 seconds for us to really go in and dive deep into that. So I'm giving everyone 30 seconds. Okay, that's time. Let's go to the next one. So next slide should be coming up. Behavior, right? So again, we're going to just do 30 seconds, not 2 minutes, but we're going to explore how our beliefs and our behavior may hinder our goal to like receiving pay equity. So how do my actions relate to my limiting beliefs and feelings around pay equity? For me, because of my beliefs, I am nervous to ask for more. I might I might not go down deep into asking for more. Sometimes I'm afraid of retaliation. So that's like one of my personal beliefs. So again, we're going to do 30 seconds, and I will ask everyone to really sit and think about how are your behaviors reflecting your belief. And let's start. Okay, so next one we're going to go is looking at the institution. So let's just give this a second for the slide to go to the next one. Perfect. So again, we're going to take 30 seconds and we're going to explore how the systems in our companies and our organizations, what we're doing, really kind of build onto the beliefs that we have, the behaviors that maybe have. And so the question I'll ask you to explore is, how does companies and organization reinforce my limiting behaviors and beliefs? Example is hard work equals pay. So you may work a 9 to 5, but sometimes you're working way extended amount that time because you believe like me doing hard work and meeting this these deadlines is really going to create my equal pay. That also leads to burnout as well, right? Another thing as women is us being super women. Like we have to be able to do everything. And one that I know everybody probably know is working without pay. Like, oh, this will be a great opportunity. You should do this because it will look good, but you're not getting paid for that work. So I ask everyone to, again, take 30 seconds and like just really write out, like I said, you can comment in sections about that experience. Okay, so next we're going to look at the culture. So slides coming soon. Let me see. Okay, so culture. So culture, when we think of culture, it's more so like society itself, right? And so society, the systems and its roots, how does preserve, protects, and maintains the status quo, right? So I'll ask you to really question, see, how does society maintain the status quo? From my experience, I am a Black woman from the South, so I experience white supremacy, misogyny, misogynoir that protects the my experience of being paid unequally, protects my experience of these are opportunities you probably shouldn't get paid for. You should just do this for free. So really dive in deep and think about, as we build from our beliefs, the behaviors and institution, how society itself preserves in your experience and protects the status quo. So again, write in comments, or if you like to just write down a piece of paper to really observe that. And I'm gonna give 30 seconds for it. Okay, so next slide. Breath break. This was a lot, because when you go exploring these type of things, it really dives in deep into your experiences. So I suggest everyone to just take a couple of moments, breathe it out. If you need to drink some water, before we go on to the next thing, because I'm going to explain to you why I believe that we had to go here. And the reason why you go here is because everything's connected and there's value when you look at your painful experiences. And I could give the best example for myself. And when I started the program at Frog Design in 2018, I have experience trying to come into the industry as a Black woman. I experienced not having the resources and not knowing who to connect with. And those are painful experiences for me. And those experiences did affect my beliefs. They did affect my behaviors. However, those experiences perpetuated me to create and want to create change for Black and Brown designers in particular, but more so designers in general. So it can really help us when we understand the context, whether it's understanding the socio-economical context by doing research, or understanding the context within ourselves. It can really prompt the opportunities for solutioning change. So that's why we dive deep into the context. So next we're going to dive into mapping. And it's just really looking at mapping the ecosystem. and of pay equity and how it all happens and works. So let's go to this now. Okay, so when we're looking at pay equity, and we're looking at the ecosystem, it involves all different types of people. It involves the experts. It involves people in different fields that we may not even think of. So it's really good to look at things holistically before you start to ideate and produce solutions to the problem. It also helps us to understand the intertwinings of problems and to co-create better. So to explore this one within pay equity in the workplace, we would look at this ecosystem template. So first, within this ecosystem template, let's do 1 minute for this one. We can write out people who make the decisions on money at your company, at your organization. So a question to really explore is, who are the people who are the voices are valuable and sign off on the pay, the raise, the bonuses at my company or organization. So of course you could think of CEOs, CFOs, but also your manager. People who also, if you have to do these peer reviews, that all counts towards your pay, and then like your argument for why you need to be paid more or be paid more equitable. So let's take a minute and look into that. So I'm gonna put a minute on the clock. Okay, time. So next one we're going to review is the beneficiaries. Of course, it's us. We're benefiting from this, but I really want to just take a minute to think of all different types of people who could benefit from it. Specifically specific people within your company, your organization, also specific roles that would benefit from this conversation. So again, within the comments, within your tablet, notebook, just write out who may benefit from this. So again, let's take 1 minute and do this. Okay, next. Okay, the ignored. And I think this is very important when we look at the ecosystem, because we sometimes think of people, but we don't think of the people who are often considered. So I think it's important for us to look at who are the people who are often not heard or excluded from the conversation. I know in media right now, they speak a lot about pay equity, and we look at all the different demographics, especially Black, Indigenous people of color, women. But when you're in these spaces, a lot of times, and I know from my experiences, we're not always heard. So I think it's important to consider that junior employees, when it comes to these type of conversations, are not always heard. Non-binary transgenders are probably not always heard, or definitely not always heard. Another thing is like motherhood and mothers who are single moms. Are they heard in these conversations? So I think it would be great for us to just take a minute and think about within our company, within our organizations, who is probably ignored from this conversation. So let's take a minute and explore that. Okay, great. So next, we're going to go into the deciding factors. So we're going to take a minute and list out the deciding factors for the decision makers so it can lean into your favor. So maybe let's do 1.5 minutes for this one, not a minute. But let's really look at what are the deciding factors and who makes those decisions and what conditions need to be created for action to take place, right? So like if a company having a hiring freeze, leaders may say it's inflation, stock turbulence, stuff that's going on right now. COVID could be a big thing right now. So I'm going to give you 1 minute and 30 seconds for us to do this. And then I'm going to give you my viewpoint on this as well. So first, I'm gonna allow everyone to just really think about it. Like, what are the deciding factors when it comes to this? And then I'm gonna give my viewpoint on that in a bit. And again, you can write in comments, or if you prefer not to share, you could like note it out. Either works. Okay, so let's go to the last one within looking at the ecosystem is collaborators. So in anything that we are looking for, especially in these conversations, there's someone who already has done something before, there's someone who we can emulate, or there's people that we can work with within our sector, our community, even within our company, right? So I think it's very important, like, to realize, you don't have to put all this pressure on you. Like, we're doing like progress, not perfection, right? We can really rely on other people and collaborate with other people when it comes to these type of topics. So let's take 1 minute to write out who is really leading the conversation right now, and how it's being led. So I would like take a moment and look at who is leading the conversation on pay equity at your company or organization, and how can you collaborate them. And let's take a minute and look into that. Okay, so that was the ecosystem mapping that we just did. This is something that I have done before, especially with like Design for Social Innovation, School of Visual Arts. But let's talk about the importance of this. So the importance of ecosystem is to be able to look at things holistically. So you'll be able to position your solution in your conversation. Like when I said I want to backtrack with deciding factors, it's good to know the deciding factors because a lot of it is arbitrary. A lot of it is sometimes excused by the organization or the company. But in order to have your conversation and to have your argument, it's good to know these are the things that may have come up. This may be the reason why. So because of this, how I'm going to position my conversation, how I'm going to position my idea to create the change that I want to see. So that's really pivotal in order to do this. Another reason why it's really good into looking at the ecosystem, because when we begin to start defining the problem and begin to start ideating, we can't work in all aspects of it, but we can see and narrow down on one and then build towards how it will affect all the others. So it's very beneficial to just really look at ecosystems. And like I said, we work focusing on pay equity, but this type of work can work on anything, especially when it comes to more of these ambiguous issues, conversations that deals with systems and systematic roots. So next, what I'm asking is for us to explore the opportunities. And maybe Carolina or Karina can help me with this. What I'm asking to do is we could like share our takeaways within the comments, and as well as probably pose questions, because this type of workshop really is thought-provoking and conversational. So I would think it would be best for us to spend our time really discussing our takeaways, what we learned, and what opportunities you think we should do moving forward. So let me look at the comments and see. Okay. Okay, it starts. Okay, I agree with you, Sherry. Pay equity does start when the employee level within your company. So I guess I pose to you, like, what opportunity do you see within that? If it starts with an employee level of your company, how do you think it should start? Like, I can give an example. When I was doing work, it wasn't for pay equity, but it was for DEI. What we started doing is I just proposed like start having a talk series, and we were able to get like $100 in order to get food, and I had to do the promotions, I had to do the marketing. That's how I met Carolina, actually. So just really was like, okay, we have a space and I want to propose us to start talking about this and create dialogue in this space. So how would you think about doing that within your space? Sure. Sherelle stated, I have these conversations with leadership. So like, how do you have these conversations with leadership? That would be a great one to really start. Like, what would be a way to start? And if y'all can comment so I can see it, since I don't think I can unmute anyone to have this conversation, but like, how were you able to have those conversations with leaderships? Like, what did you do? That would be a great way to think of it. If leadership is listening to the employees, I think it would be powerful to split into groups and do series workshops. I think that's powerful too. And another thing is, what I have learned is sometimes if you start it yourself, leadership's going to listen. They didn't really listen to me when I was like, oh, I'm going to do this D&I talk series. But when they saw the amount of people externally coming in and wanting to have this talk and how thought-provoking it was, then leadership was like, oh, maybe we need to consider this more. And oh, maybe we need to do this and that. So I'm a firm believer, just me, is starting it. And then once we start it, leadership can come around if in your organization leadership does not. Let's see. Who else? Okay, Sherelle, she wrote something really powerful. People have to bring these conversations to the forefront and be willing to address the inequities in the workspace. If there is no place to build that into a workplace, then change won't happen. And I think that's excellent. And unfortunately, we do not always have the opportunity to create that space. So if you work in an organization that does not allow it, how can you do it externally? What I think a lot of times, especially being a designer in tech and then being a designer in general, because the amount of designers, I believe, that are Black are like 3%, is going outside to start having these conversations. And if it's not beneficial in your workspace, sometimes it's like, maybe I need to leave, because there are places that will allow you to have these conversations and put it in the forefront and willing to address these things without issues. Like the story with my mom. My mom did leave and my mom did very well afterwards, So I think it's very powerful in really understanding these things. Who else? So this is a workshop. Someone said, how does this implement in a company culture? So I believe, Michelle, this is something like that you can work within. So like I said, not every company culture supports this. So it's more so of like when you're doing this process and you're looking for pay equity, it could be for like how I'm going to position the conversation for myself. I'm going to position this conversation for within my organization, how I'm going to build this within my community, because I believe that we should have these type of conversations. It's really good to really go through this process internally. That's one thing we learn within social innovation, is how you need to look at your ants, your beliefs, and before you go into spaces and have these conversations with others. I know people who work in social work can very much attest to that. So this workshop is really building upon that. And it can be a plethora of different ways. Like I said, it could be just like you having this conversation. So I understand the ecosystem. I understand my beliefs. So moving forward, I'm going to ask for these different amounts because I'm going to try to break a barrier of how I have thought before. Or I'm going to try to organize for more junior employees to have these conversations, or women who are mothers to have more of these conversations, because it's not always spoken of. Okay, are there any other comments? Okay. Sherelle, she is a community organizer, and I see the many ways that things overlap, even thinking through the way policy works on a city, state, federal level. If people don't speak up, change. I totally attest to that, and I believe that 100%. Um, we have to speak up. And one thing Sherry said is it starts with the bottom level. Like, one thing that when I did this research about reimagining design thinking, and I was looking in the context of the Georgia elections, right? And how they were able to turn the state blue. We know Stacey Abrams, she did a lot when it came to looking within the we know she did a lot with looking at the legal system and legislation, but there was a lot of people who were doing grassroots things, and they were going into the communities and having these conversations with people and the community as a whole to really line up. There were people who were going door to door to make sure, hey, you may not be able to vote, so let's make sure you re-register, because different systems may have kicked them out, etc. And there's a name system that shows that. So so I think it's a mixture of both, of hit it within like Sherelle does community work, and she does do work within the state level, whereas Sherry working with the employees as well. So like I said, that's where it would be extremely beneficial to look at your collaborators and how can you collaborate with that. Carol has a question. Does this mean sharing your pay with coworkers? That could be frowned upon. How can we overcome that? This is a difficult, how do you say? Yes, it is a difficult and great question. Actually, I've been seeing, I don't know, people on social media. I love social media, TikTok, and sort of because it also is thought-provoking to have conversations. And what I've been seeing is people are starting to become more transparent within this type of conversation. So there's different ways. I feel like if it's someone that you trust and build a relationship with as a coworker, a mentor, that really also benefit me. When I'm in companies, I try to find an ally or a mentor to have those conversations with. That would be an easier way to start it. Another beneficial thing is, say if you're not comfortable starting to have this conversation within your company, you could work with people who are in your industry and go to different events and have transparency. And I think we maybe it's millennials, Gen Z are becoming more comfortable with having transparency with these conversations. Also, I think there are different Glassdoor, and what else they have? They have the Fishbowl now, different things that really say how much are being paid, but I feel like they don't always break it down. And this is just my opinion. Sometimes someone's like, oh, I just started this at this new startup and it's $300K, but they don't break down this is the equity, this is my base salary, this is this is that. I think that's very beneficial to be transparent with, because you may look at it and be like, oh, people are making so much money, or oh, I'm doing too much, but really just being transparent in the sense of not in a braggy way, but this is how much I'm being paid, this is how much the company is equity, this is how things turn around. Also, this is a problem I experienced. How did you work over this problem? So I don't mean to go on a tangent, but I think it's important to find mentors in your company, someone that you really trust, and or go outside your company and speak to people within the industry. Dan, I completely agree with you. It's taboo because employers do not want you to talk about it. In most places, it's not illegal, so just have the conversation. The results may surprise you. Yes. And yeah, Glassdoor is not. Glassdoor give you a range, but it won't really help you really find out how much you are getting paid. Let me see. Yes, we're moving forward to better pay transparency for now. Most of my research are still from general researchers. Yes, I agree with that. But it's very powerful, man, when you have these conversations with people who you who are in your industry. because it also might not feel so, yeah, it might not feel so, like taboo, taboo in your company. So I will say start having a conversation within your community, or try to first find a community that within your industry, and then start having those conversations there, because also it'll be helpful as learning different people's tactics on it. Chelsea, in the U.S., discussion between employees about pay is protected by law, NLRA. The challenge will be breaking the taboo. I agree with that as well. Cheryl again. In NYC, the pay range will now be shown on job descriptions. So I would guess that most people will know the potential salary someone is making. Yep. We are allowing that in NYC now. Are there any other questions? Nadia, when you say the question is also taboo, what question are you speaking of? That would be helpful for me, because I'm trying to follow. It's taboo. Trying to see where that conversation came from. I'm looking up. Okay. Yeah. And so I think where we talking about having these conversations may backfire, let's go back and look at the exercise that we did with the context. Like, what is your belief that may backfire? Because that was a belief for me for a while, that if I asked or did certain things, there would be retaliation for it. Like, I would used to may have one conversation or one counter offer, but I really wouldn't go deep into it. So I think it's really good to go back to the context and relook at your beliefs of how would it backfire. Jealousy with coworkers. And yes, if you feel like there's jealousy within coworkers, I think it's pivotal to have that conversation outside, because within other things that I've worked on too, I didn't have support of coworkers at first. I think one thing, and Cheryl has mentioned before, look within your beliefs, look within why you feel like you can't ask for different things, the behaviors in the institution. And then if you do not feel comfortable having these type of conversations within your company, I think it's very beneficial to have it outside within different organizations where people will have those type of conversations. So then you could come in equipped and have the conversation with your leader. And it doesn't have to always be high up leader. The conversation first starts with your manager, and really writing a compelling argument for it. Understanding these things may be happening right now, but this is what I am contributing. This is what I believe. So, okay. That's why it's not easy to have this conversation. To ask salaries. Yep. Okay. So let's go on to next. We just did that. So I'm going to provide resources. These resources is more so within reimagining design thinking. What I did was I took my learnings of reimagining design thinking and I applied it to pay equity. But there's a lot of resources that can help you with this as well when you come to reimagining design thinking. Let me see. Oh, okay. Sherry said, I don't mind telling people how much I make. Laugh out loud. I think it's important to share and make space equal and competitive. And I totally agree with you. And then Carol, I agree that starting a company community would be easier than starting a workplace. Yeah. And I think as the taboo erase, it'll be easier, but it's good to start the conversation in your community. So if people want to learn more about reimagining design thinking. These are the tools that will help you out, and you could apply it for everything. Like right now, we're talking about pay equity. But if it's something that you're really passionate about, that is more you want to try to create a solution or build something towards it, I think these are great resources. So Anne H. Berry, she wrote this book, Black Experience in Design, Identity, Expressions, and Reflection. It's really geared towards the Black experience because it's little to none within design, but I think anybody can benefit from this for sure. Reading this work, very beautifully written. Humanity Control, I follow them on Twitter, and they have workshops where it's mobilizing leaders who desire more equitable, human-centered approaches to work and well-being. And so their topics can definitely gear if you really focus on the pay equity conversation. Creative Reactive Lab is something that I actually love. I did a workshop with them before, and they have Redesigners in Action webinar series, as well as revealing and unlearning racialized design. That's taught by Teresa Moses. So the first one that we did. Also that I want to add, and I had it in my presentation, but I think it uploaded the older version, is Design for Social Innovation at School of Visual Arts. They have a program for community leaders, and for you could sit back and really like learn these techniques in order to start having these conversations. And like I said, you can use this for yourself, or you can also use this to mobilize within the community. And so if anybody wants to take a screenshot quickly, screenshot this for different resources to check out. And then again, I just wanted to bring out the inspiration again for this workshop that I created. I think everyone should check these out. It was very beneficial and helpful to really like start looking at the frame of pay equity and start having these type of conversations. And you can email me, or you can find me on LinkedIn. So ariellewiltz@gmail.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn. And I would like to thank everyone for taking the time to listen to this conversation.
Thank you so much, Arielle. This is great. So we learned a lot, and then I really appreciate your time. Just being with us. So hopefully everyone enjoyed too. So feel free to put your comments on the comment section. So like how great this workshop was. So once again, we are really happy to have you here, Arielle, and then hopefully to just have you again.
All right. Thank you so much.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.